We won the election easily. There's no way Joe Biden got 80 million votes. I just said there's no way Joe Biden beat Barack Obama in the black communities of various cities, and then he did very badly compared to Obama in other cities throughout the United States. There's no way it happened. This election was a fraud.
I think you should extend an invitation for the inner city African-American voters who were uninspired by Barack Obama, but then who leapt to the polls to go vote for Joe Biden to come on the show. Because I, like the president, I want to meet these people. I want to understand what was so deeply compelling about Joe Biden's message, because we didn't really hear much of one at all. What we know is that Donald Trump won an overwhelming landslide of the people who actually showed up and voted in person, whether that was on Election Day or during early voting. And then the farther the voter got away from the authentication process, the later the votes were counted, the better Joe Biden did with those voters. And so I think there's a lesson here for Republicans to learn. If we allow the voting process to be separated from identification, authentication, audit, and review, then we're asking for these types of outcomes, because when it comes to the people who actually have to show up in person and vote, this was a landslide for Donald Trump. And everybody knows it. No one seriously even questions that. The main legal problem for the Trump team is that illegal ballots have been commingled with larger universes of ballots. So you can prove that there is fraud as to some ballots, but if those fraudulent ballots are then mixed into a larger pool, it's very difficult to obtain remedies from the courts to exclude that entire pool of polluted ballots. But we should not act as if this is some unsolvable problem. Election fraud really requires two things. One, a very large pool of unaccounted for ballots that aren't attached to a human. And then second is the rapid processing of those ballots. So someone should only get a ballot in the mail if they ask for one. But Democrats were able to create this universe of millions of ballots, and then they were not processed as they came in most states. We did do that in Florida, by the way. Instead, what they did is process them, 2, 4, 600,000 at the time. Then they exclude the observers, and then they just wrap those polluted ballots into a broader universe. And I think that is where we're proving the fraud, but not obtaining the remedies that we would like to see.
There's something so smug and disgusting about the media's fawning over Biden. And this writer for the New Yorker magazine put her finger on why they're doing it. Here's the quote. "I think there's just a reluctance to make one's social life uncomfortable, that it was easier in the Trump era and it's going to be harder in the Biden era for reporters to not feel uncomfortable."
I wish that the media would either stop lying about Donald Trump or that they would start telling the truth about Joe Biden. And if you sort of track their relationship status, I think Obama got the honeymoon, Trump got the acrimonious divorce and alimony payments, and now Joe Biden's getting the makeup sex. I mean, you look at the mainstream media articles about Joe Biden, they write about the fact that he's adopted 2 German shepherds and was bringing them to the White House. Yeah. If Donald Trump did that, they would accuse Trump of being an agent of the German government, for goodness sakes.
Biden wants this man, Alejandro Mayorkas, to run the Department of Homeland Security. But a 2015 Inspector General report found, in the words of Senator Tom Cotton this week, that Mayorkas was, quote, guilty of selling green cards to Chinese nationals on behalf of rich Democratic donors. The scheme involved a casino pushed by then Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, and a business venture involving former Virginia Governor and Clinton crony Terry McAuliffe. This is disgusting swamp corruption. It's astonishing that Biden wants Mayorkas in his cabinet. I guess yet more proof that Biden is the swamp. Matt, I mean, I'm amazed this isn't already a bigger scandal. I can't believe that they didn't check this out in the vetting of this man, so they must have known about it and thought it's perfectly fine. Yeah, it's all right for you to, literally sell green cards to Chinese nationals and then put you in charge of Homeland Security.
Sadly, this happens all the time, and it's becoming increasingly clear that in Joe Biden's America, it might be illegal to open a restaurant, but encouraged to invite a Central American caravan or to make book with the Chinese who simply want to buy their way into the country rather than participate in a legal immigration system. I mean, putting Mayorkas in charge of the Department of Homeland Security is like putting the Fire Festival crew in charge of the inauguration. This is someone who is a pro-immigration activist, and his objective will be to try to create a porous border and a system where more and more people can have mass migration into our country. And we need to stand against this. I'm glad some Republican senators are showing backbone and indicating they will not support this nomination.
I know that most people buying Obama's new book never read it and just carry it around for virtue signaling, but I actually have been reading it, and I'm about halfway through. I'm going to keep going to the bitter end to bring you anything interesting. But here's something amazing I found. So you remember this. It has to be one of the most notorious Biden quotes ever.
I mean, you got the first sort of mainstream African American who is articulate and bright and clean and a nice-looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook, man.
Obama includes it in his book when describing his decision to pick Biden as his running mate, except here's Obama's version, quote, articulate and bright and clean and a nice-looking guy, leaving out first mainstream African-American and storybook. Now, why would someone who cares as much about racism as Obama says he does doctor a quote from his own vice president to make it sound less racist? And so, Matt, you could say this is just a small thing. He's messing around with the quote. But to me, it's highly significant, because if Obama goes to the trouble of lying about this, then how can you believe like anything else he says in the entire book?
Well, and it's particularly interesting in the context of Obama's critique of people's culture. He blamed white people in Pennsylvania for clinging to their Bibles and their guns. He's blamed Hispanics in this last election for clinging to their views on family and their pro-life values. And yet I think Obama ignores, both in the book and his commentary on Biden, what really does make our country great, and that's prosperity, giving everyone the opportunity to succeed. And what we fear on the right is that Joe Biden is going to enact these socialist policies through the Trojan horse of coronavirus, and it will indeed vanquish the promise of our country. And you could tell that Obama doesn't think too much of America, because he calls it the promised land, sort of saying that we have not lived up to a promise. I think this is the greatest country that's ever existed, and I feel so blessed to live here.
Well, it seems now there are three certainties in life: death, taxes, and Democrat double standards. We've already showed you how Pelosi and California Governor Gavin Newsom flouted the same lockdown policies they pushed. We've got one more to add to that list. Denver Mayor Michael Hancock forced to apologize after he was caught traveling for Thanksgiving, directly contradicting the stay-at-home advice that he gave. Matt, it's just never ending. On and on. You know, they just break the rules they insist we all follow. What that tells me is that they don't even believe it themselves. If they really thought it was so dangerous to do the things that they stop us from doing, then they wouldn't do it.
The truth, Steve, is we're all hypocrites. Every politician you know falls short of the vision that they talk about in their own conduct. You know why? Most humans do. After all, politics is aspirational. The problem here isn't that someone wants to see their family or get their hair done or have dinner. The problem is that these lockdowns will ultimately do more damage to our country than the coronavirus ever could. I have a message for Gavin Newsom. I would like to go inside of a restaurant and eat a cheeseburger. I am tired of gutter dining. America is too great a nation to be dining in tents outside of restaurants, depriving people of jobs and economic opportunity. This is Congressman Matt Gaetz. If you liked that video, make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media, and join us on our daily podcast, Hot Takes with Matt Gaetz, on your favorite podcast listening platform.